Hello and welcome to another live edition of VTV News on VTV International. You're with me, Hainam from Hanoi, and we start with the headlines. The National Election Council convened its fourth session today, April 13th, to prepare for the nearing election. Vietnam Expo 2016 opens in Hanoi. 55 years ago, on April 12th, the first human space flight succeeded with the launch of Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin. A ceremony was held in Hanoi on Tuesday to celebrate the event. Now, top news of the hour. The 13th National Assembly concluded its 11th session in Hanoi on Tuesday. The session was a success, fulfilling all set tasks regarding drafting legislation, reviewing the legislature's performance during the 13th tenure, debating and agreeing socio-economic issues, and electing new leaders.
The last gathering of National Assembly deputies in this tenure wrapped up in Hanoi on Tuesday after 19 days. Deputies considered and passed 7 bills and adopted a resolution ratifying a diplomatic note on the visa agreement between Vietnam and the U.S. Regarding the election of new high-ranking leaders, the National Assembly elected the top positions, including Chairperson of the National Assembly, Chairperson of the National Election Council, State President and Prime Minister. For the first time, the National Assembly Chairperson, the President, the Prime Minister, and the Chief Justice took oaths of office. Earlier on the same day, legislators looked into government reports on the implementation of the 2015 Socio-Economic Development Plan and plans for 2016-2020. Legislators set out general objectives of ensuring macroeconomic stability, striving for higher economic growth compared to the 2010-2015 period. The plan also set out specific goals such as GDP growth of 6.5 to 7% per year, per annum income per capita of $3,200 to $3,500, and a state budget deficit of below 4% of GDP in 2020, to name a few. The legislature issued a resolution on the performance of the National Assembly, State President, Government, Prime Minister, Chief Justice of the Supreme People's Court, Prosecutor General of the Supreme People's Procuracy, and State Auditor General during the 2011-2016 tenure.
In continued preparation for the elections of the 14th National Assembly and People's Councils of all levels, the National Election Council convened its fourth session today, April 13th. At the event, the Election Council completed assigning specific tasks to all members. The Council also reviewed the progress of preparation activities. Accordingly, public opinions on candidates are being collected, and the list of candidates is updated regularly. Promotion campaigns to raise public awareness of elections are also intensifying. Concluding the session, National Assembly Chairwoman Nguyễn Thị Kim Ngân emphasized the Council's task over the coming time, including finalizing the candidate list and ensuring the election process follows the laws of Vietnam. In other news, UK State Secretary for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs Philip Hammond had talks with Vietnamese Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Phạm Bình Minh in Hanoi on Tuesday as part of his visit to Vietnam. Both sides considered measures to solidify the strategic partnership and agreed on ways to boost the relationship in all fields. Foreign Minister Minh asked the UK government to facilitate the granting of visas for Vietnamese citizens. He also appreciated the UK Foreign Secretary's pledge to consider projects to address climate change, including saltwater intrusion in the Mekong Delta. Hammond said his country prioritizes reinforcing cooperation in education with Vietnam, including the establishment of a UK-Vietnam Institute in Da Nang City, as well as promoting climate change mitigation and anti-wildlife trafficking efforts. At the talks, the two sides were unanimous in continued collaboration and mutual support at multilateral forums, particularly the United Nations, the Asia-Europe meeting, and between the ASEAN and the EU. Also on the same day, the British State Secretary visited Vietnam Academy of Science and Technology, where a project for extracting curcumin from turmeric is being run. This project is an example of cooperation between Vietnam and the UK. More details to follow.
Curcumin is a bright yellow chemical produced by some plants of the ginger family. It is used widely as an antioxidant to reduce the risk of tumors, relieve the symptoms of stomach ulcers, and to enhance the immune system. The substance has now been successfully extracted from Vietnamese yellow turmeric. The work is a result of joint research between scientists in Vietnam and the UK, supported by the Knowledge Partnership Fund.
Deliver partnerships in science and technology with countries around the world who have bright, clever, innovative scientists and who need a little bit of funding support to get their ideas off the ground. Since 2014, we've supported we made 80 different grants to researchers in Vietnam.
The project is currently developed in over 10 British research establishments, with the participation of more than 60 scientists in Vietnam and the UK.
We were able to extract curcumin using modern technologies. After that, we use curcumin to make our product, which enhances the ability of the body to cope with disease. This is a new step towards producing medicines that can prevent cancer.
The goal of this project is to make Vietnamese turmeric a stable crop for producing curcumin to make medicines. The byproducts of the curcumin production process can also be used to make microbial organic fertilizer, animal feed, and safe plant production products.
The 26th Vietnam Expo opened this morning on Wednesday in Hanoi. This year's fair sees the participation of more than 500 companies from 23 countries and territories. 600 booths display products from the construction, automobile, pharmacy, and food and beverage industries, among others. Jointly organized by the Ministry of Industry and Trade and the National Trade and Advertising Joint Stock Company of INEXAT over the last 2 decades, the annual event serves as a bridge for promoting trade ties between Vietnam and other countries. The expo will last until Saturday. On April 12th, a list of 500 fastest growing enterprises in Vietnam was announced in Hanoi. These are all businesses with steady growth from 2011 to 2015. This year, An Long Food Company in the Mekong Delta tops the list. According to the survey, these businesses have high revenues and after-tax incomes, launch new products on a regular basis, and keep expanding business in many market segments. On the same day, the top 50 Vietnam the Best list, that includes 50 companies with outstanding performance, was also released. Although Vietnam experienced slow economic growth in the first quarter of 2016, this is not a significant concern according to economic experts. This was notably included in the economic report just published on Tuesday by the Vietnam Institute for Economic and Policy Research.
According to a macroeconomic report released on Tuesday, economic growth in the first quarter 2016 was lower than that of the same period last year, with GDP growth of only 5.46% in 2016 compared to 6.12% in 2015. The reasons underpinning the lower growth are referred to as challenges in industrial and agricultural productions.
Despite the common economic fluctuations in Vietnam, following quarters usually witness a rise compared to previous quarters. So I expect that the macroeconomy will grow, as there appears to be no sudden negative changes in the time ahead.
Also, according to experts, low economic growth is not necessarily a negative thing, because it can be considered a step back to prepare for more sustainable economic growth.
If we really restructure the economy, then economic growth must decline. but it will be a good sign to ensure positive growth in the coming times. So although 2016 economic growth may not reach 6.78%, and the inflation rate may not stop at over 1% as for last year, there's nothing to be pessimistic about.
The budget's deficit in the first quarter of 2016 is another concern raised in the report. The 2015 state budget deficit was 6.34% of GDP, which was significantly higher than the target of 5% set out by the National Assembly. This will require the newly established National Assembly to enact more effective measures to balance the state budget.
The first and most important point is to restrain regular expenditures, including petrol, worker salaries, etc. This is quite a challenge because it directly affects people and activities throughout the whole chain, so the expenditure cannot be cut suddenly.
Although economic growth in the first quarter was not expected, the trend can become positive over the next periods if Vietnam can take advantage of opportunities presented in the free trade agreements and promote administrative reforms.
The Vietnam Provincial Governance and Public Administration Performance Index, also known as PAPI, is a policy monitoring tool that reflects the experiences of people when receiving local and national government services. PAPI helps to audit the quality of the country's civil servants and improve the provision of services to the public. On Tuesday, PAPI 2015, the latest PAPI report was announced.
The latest Provincial Governance and Public Administration Performance Index, or PAPI rankings, put the provinces of Nam Định, Hà Tĩnh, Quảng Trị and Long An and the city of Da Nang top. The rankings are based on openness and transparency, anti-corruption efforts, public participation at a grassroots levels, accountability and the quality of public administrative procedures as criteria.
It is worth noting that 13 provinces or cities have seen a significant drop in points compared to 5 years ago. Local government should study the PAPI index and find out what are the weaknesses that need addressing.
The index is a summary of various interrelated issues, such as poor transparency often leads to less effective anti-corruption efforts, deterrence is minimized, and public satisfaction is often worse.
Approximately 44% of pupils seeking certificates of land rights in 2015 had to offer bribes to be able to finish the procedures. This shows alarm on governance and public administration in 2015.
In terms of the government, the leader must know how to use tools that can help adjust policies for institutional development, particularly given the context of increasing international integration.
PAPI is the most effective policy monitoring tool that reflects public experiences of central to local government in terms of service delivery. The 2015 report presents the results from nearly 14,000 citizens in 63 cities and provinces across Vietnam.
Now still in economic news, construction of the first phase of a $4 billion South Hoi An integrated casino resort will start on April 23rd. This is a joint venture between Vietnam-focused asset management firm Vina Capital, the Macau-based Sun City Group, and the Hong Kong-based Chow Tai Fook Enterprises Limited. Accordingly, Phase 1's construction will be implemented on an area of 160 hectares with a total capital of $500 million and is expected to reach completion in the first quarter of 2019. Once the resort comes into operation, it will be the second largest casino in Vietnam. And now, before we continue, let's take a look at the foreign exchange rates in the market today. Coming up next on VTV News, Cham Village with unique way of to save water in drought season. And the Russian Center of Science and Culture in Hanoi celebrated the 55th anniversary of the first human space flight. Welcome back to VTV News. Hot weather is now expanding across Vietnam, with temperatures in the northern region rising during the last few days. The highest temperatures ranged from 35 to 37 degrees Celsius, with some places perhaps even reaching 38 degrees. It is forecast that the hot weather in the northwestern region will start weakening from April 13. Meanwhile, the high temperatures will also continue in the Central Highlands and southern provinces for the next 5 to 6 days. More dangerously strong winds, thunderstorms, and hailstorms may occur around nightfall in some areas in the Central Highlands and Central region. Water saving is a necessity for many affected areas during the drought season. Cham Tuan Tu Village, An Hai Commune, Ninh Phước District in Ninh Thuận Province is no exception. All farmers here have their own ways to save water and how their life remains stable during the drought season. Let's see how they save water in the following report.
Previously, this area of land in Tuan Tu village of Ninh Thuận Province was deemed to be useless in the drought season, but now the vegetables covered all of this area. Hung Ki's family is harvesting their tomato garden, and he can still earn a living from this garden despite the drought. This is because every garden is installed with a water-saving irrigation system.
All the people in Tuan Tu village installed these systems when they have land.
Hung Ki has 2.5 hectares of land, and he started using the irrigation system in 2011. He had to pay $3,500 to invest in the system, a large amount of money for a farmer. But to him, it was worth it because of its efficiency.
We can save up to 50% of our water for irrigation. It takes only 11 cubic meters of water when running for 1 hour, whereas the overflowing irrigation water system uses 20 to 30 cubic meters.
After several people like Hung Ki invested in water-saving irrigation systems, a further 180 households in the village decided to apply the system.
This irrigation system performs really well. For instance, with peanuts, the yield has reached 3.5 to 4 tons, and farmers' income is nearly $4,000.
To farmers in Tuan Tu village, the water-saving irrigation system is really efficient.
In the past, the land here was deserted, but now, thanks to the irrigation systems, the land here is made use of effectively.
The water resources are used reasonably, and this helps save water for farmers. That's why cultivation in this area of land remains stable in the drought season.
Drought and salinization has a severe impact on the Mekong Delta, damaging hundreds of thousands of hectares of rice in the region. The situation has now been improved as fresh water from upstream has finally reached the delta. However, in the context of climate change, a long-term plan to deal with the situation is needed. One method is to develop a rice variety that can withstand extreme weather conditions. Duc Tuan tells us more.
The OM4900 is a rice variety that has been adapted to cope really well with high salinity conditions. The variety can tolerate salinity levels of 3 per mil. It also can survive drought for 1.5 months and floods of up to 80 centimeters.
There are already some varieties around that can stand reasonably high levels of salinity, but simply we were able to push the level higher. That's the whole story. And as I said, in particular, we were able to combine it with other positive traits. So that it has a high yield potential. It can also sustain long flooding.
OM4900 is just one variety that was successfully bred in a project which is specifically addressing the impact of climate change on land use in the Mekong Delta region, known as the CLUES project. The Long Delta Rice Researching Institute is one of the participating organizations in this project. The institute continues to work on many kinds of rice varieties with higher level tolerance of bad weather.
We are currently developing rice varieties that can tolerate both submersion and salinity, and one variety that can tolerate complete submergence.
In the past 10 years, the Long Delta Rice Researching Institute has successfully cooperated with scientists from Germany, Japan, and the US in producing climate-adaptable rice varieties.
We are writing proposals to get new projects there together with our Vietnamese colleague. You may know that this year the salinity problem is very big in the Delta, and so far we're of course observing this, and we are trying to also assist our Vietnamese colleagues.
According to a report by DARA International, Vietnam loses around $15 billion a year because of climate change, a figure that accounts for 5% of GDP, with the agricultural sector most severely affected. Therefore, developing new rice varieties with the ability to adapt to climate change is vital in helping stabilize agricultural production.
In other news, computer users in Vietnam lost over $390 million due to virus attacks in 2015, and these losses are predicted to increase in 2016. The Net Poland Solution Day on Threat Recognition Efficiency Maximization was held on Tuesday in Hanoi to address the issue. According to the Internet Security Agencies, 93% of social network users in Vietnam are not aware of the online security database data breaches when exposing their personal information or accessing unsafe websites. Antivirus software, as well as over 100 leading IT solutions in Southeast Asia at the event, are expected to help Vietnamese users better secure their data. 55 years ago, on April 12th, the age of human space exploration began with the launch of Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin into space. It was the first ever successful human space flight. The Russian Center of Science and Culture in Hanoi celebrated the anniversary on Tuesday with the participation from the Russian Federation Space Agency and Vietnam's first and only astronaut, Phạm Tuân.
On April 1961, cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin lifted off in Vostok 1 on his historic mission. With the launch of Gagarin came an era that many believed to be impossible. The anniversary includes an exhibition featuring photos of human space flight from Yuri Gagarin's time up to today's International Space Station, or ISS.
Gagarin's first flight into space marked a new era for human civilization. Today, all research areas are related to the field of space science, from a country's economy and media to the internet. We are preparing for trips to the moon and possibly Mars in the foreseeable future. And of course, none of this would have happened without Gagarin's first ever mission.
Vietnam started its space flight with the launch of astronaut Phạm Tuân and his Russian counterpart Kobatko in 1980, followed by the launch into orbit of the satellite Venusat-1 in 2008 and Venusat-2 in 2012.
That trip was the basis for the establishment and development of Vietnam's space science. That time was difficult, but Vietnamese scientists then were well prepared for the mission, and it succeeded. That was the beginning.
After Phạm Tuân's space flight until now, Vietnam has continued to cooperate with Russia in training for the aerospace industry.
I have huge passion for space science. My major is missile technology, since the sector is essential to the development of space technology. During our years at the university, we have had the chance to meet and learn much from Russian experts in aerospace.
Currently, Vietnam-Russia Aerospace Cooperation is based on an agreement on the exploration and use of outer space for peaceful purposes. The agreement laid the foundations for the navigation system GLONASS in the two countries, enhancing the defense capability of Vietnam and opening up new directions for cooperation. Besides GLONASS, our two countries can cooperate in many areas, including remote sensing, satellite navigation, launches, studies in deep space exploration, and all kinds of aerospace research. There will be more 55-year anniversaries to mark historic moments such as the first human space flight. For the two countries of Vietnam and Russia, the aim is to build legal foundations for the establishment and development of cooperation in many technological areas.
Traditional rituals were held at the Hung King's Temple historical site in the northern province of Phu Thọ on Tuesday for the nation's legendary founder Lạc Long Quân and to pay tribute to Mother Ocher. The provincial leaders offered incense, flowers and offerings. Phu Thọ province has preserved the Hung King Temple site, making it a spiritual destination for people nationwide. Vietnamese legend has it that Lạc Long Quân married Ocher and they gave birth to a sack containing 100 eggs, from which 100 children were born. Their first children then became the King Hung, who according to the story founded the first Vietnamese nation. The exemption on visa requirements for tourists from the UK, France, Germany, Italy and Spain will expire on July 1st, according to the General Director of the Vietnam National Administration of Tourism, Nguyễn Văn Tuấn. Speaking at a conference on Vietnam's tourism sector in the first quarter of this year, he said the agency has been reviewing its work and proposed an extension. By April, the number of tourists from European countries to Vietnam has increased by 20% compared to the same period last year, with tourists from Italy topped the list with a 30% increase. Let's now check out the weather updates. And that's it for VTV News at 3 p.m. You can find out more about our broadcast program at vtv4.vn and youtube.com/vtv4go. More news on Vietnam will be updated at 6 p.m. Hanoi time. For now, goodbye.